What does the name Nightfall bring to mind? For me, it's a couple of things. One is the 2006 film The Fall. It's about Lee Pace at his sexiest. Wait, no, I said the quiet part out loud. The other thing is all of the anthology TV series I grew up watching: Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Night Gallery, Tales from the Dark Side, and Tales from the Crypt. You know, the creepy classics. Hi, I'm Irene, and this is Inkworks, where I art and anecdote. Just for funsies. I'll talk about those anthology shows later on. For now, I want to explain what's going on here. This is the 5th installment in the Plotter Ink Journal series. It's called that because I'm using the Plotter journal that was gifted to me, not because I'm plotting something nefarious. Frankly, I consider myself the least villainous YouTuber around. Oh, no reason in particular. It's simply part of my daily affirmation. At the end of the video, you'll see this swatch sheet get added to the ring-bound plotter system. For paper, I'm using Sanzen's Tomoe River 68-gram weight. That's the boring stuff. The exciting part is the color. Today's featured fountain pen ink is Nightfall. It's what's called a chameleon ink, one that has color-shifting shimmer. I'll admit, spotting subtleties is not my forte, so it just looks like a shimmer ink to me. Maybe you can point out what I'm missing. Once the page is completed, you'll see the close-up footage where the shimmer is better displayed. Nightfall is from Diamine's 2023 Inkvent collection. I'm continuing the plan to swatch all 25 of those first, before moving on to other inks. If you're unfamiliar, those TV series I mentioned earlier are often categorized as speculative fiction. The term speculative fiction includes many genres, but more often than not, it's aligned with horror, sci-fi, fantasy, etc. Usually, such stories include some sort of fantastical what-if element. The Twilight Zone from the 1950s and 60s was the OG speculative television series. It was aired regularly as reruns all during my childhood, so I'm pretty familiar with it and definitely have my favorite episodes. But I'm not going to list them here. There are way too many. Generally speaking, Twilight Zone episodes were easily digestible half-hour stories with twist endings and moral messages. Outer Limits had an hour-long format, but the themes were more sci-fi oriented and, in my opinion, less accessible for general viewers. Tales from the Dark Side and Tales from the Crypt from the 1980s and 90s were both more horror-focused. I believe all of that stuff evolved from earlier pulp publications, such as Amazing Stories and Weird Tales. Interestingly, Amazing Stories was yet another anthology series during the 1980s, thanks to producer Steven Spielberg. My favorite Amazing Stories episode was the comedic Mummy Daddy. It involved a horror movie production, superstitious locals, and a soon-to-be father desperately trying to get to the delivery room. During my young adulthood, I was sorta into mummies, mainly due to Elizabeth Peters' Amelia Peabody series of mystery/adventure novels. But maybe I also liked Mummy Daddy because it was silly. I do have a high tolerance for silliness, after all. The other day, my brother treated me to lunch. It was around noonish, the sun was shining, and we figured it was a prime opportunity to visit Lucky's Drive-In. It's a cute little roadside burger stand out in Tacoma with a mid-century aesthetic. There are several picnic tables and an eat-in bus on site. It's really adorable, so I'll include a link to their Yelp page in the description so you can see for yourself. Anyway, they're known for their mushroom Swiss burger. I remember the first time I went there years ago, I'd previously read a review that raved over the mushroom Swiss, but I was all, "You're not the boss of me," and ordered a bacon cheeseburger instead. It was good, but I wasn't blown away. Well, a relative subsequently gave me what for and took me back to Lucky's for the mushroom Swiss experience. It was so good, I haven't ordered anything else there since. Now, that item used to be on a French roll, but they've switched to a brioche bun. A cost-saving measure, perhaps? But I can't complain, because the moans don't lie. At least not when it comes to food. Seriously, that burger was the tastiest thing I've had in weeks. I nearly said months, then remembered the Japanese golden curry dinner in February. So, do you recall when I said the sun was shining? Well, the moment we hit the road for Lucky's, the clouds moved in, making everything overcast again. And as we sat at a picnic table awaiting our order, it began to rain. It was kind of a bummer. The salt in the wound, though, was "Here Comes the Sun" playing through their speakers as we trudged back to the car, all dumped on and dampened. At least we get to eat soon, we thought, before getting stuck in lane-diverted traffic. Yeah, it took a while before we could dig in, so I was pleasantly surprised by how warm the food still was. No doubt thanks to the foil wrapping they use. I was licking the last of the yumness from my fingers before it dawned on me that I didn't take any photos. There's a saying, pictures or it didn't happen. And now some of you may be thinking, there she goes, fantasizing about imaginary food again. My first viewing of The Fall years ago was very memorable, mostly because I bawled my eyes out. The story is set in Los Angeles around 1920, where a young girl is told a story, but we get to see it visualized through her imagination. It's stunningly beautiful and, in the end, emotionally ringing. Although much of the movie feels like a grand adventure, there are also themes of death, despair, and suicide. It was a challenging watch, but a highly rewarding one. Yeah, The Fall goes on my top 20 list for sure. Just don't confuse The Fall with Darkness Falls from 2003. Darkness Falls is one of those speculative fiction stories, since it's all about what if the Tooth Fairy is real? Not only real, but also a malevolent spirit bent on revenge. I actually like Darkness Falls. Sure, it doesn't make much sense, and it's not a shining example of the genre, but I get a kick out of it. Look, they don't all have to be Lucky's Mushroom Swiss Burger. Sometimes the humble BK Whopper does the job. Although this small bottle of Nightfall is from the 2023 Inkvent box, Diamine releases their Inkvent inks individually in 50 ml glass bottles. And I've seen this one, Nightfall, listed between $16 and $24 at several online retail sites, such as Gold Spot Pens, Colt Pens, Atlas Stationers, etc. The bottle is shaped differently from their regular line and has 4 glass feet, making it pretty distinctive. Its size and weight makes it awfully tempting to grab and hurl just to see how far it would travel. But I would never waste a bottle of ink that way. No, not gonna do it. I'm happy to share this ink demonstration. Nightfall is what I'd call a dark midnight blue with pretty blue shimmer particles. A clear PNW evening where stars twinkle through wispy clouds. The washes reveal subtle hints of pink and teal, and closer inspection even shows a trace of sheen. A perfect skyscape under which to sit and sip on hot cocoa nudged with black velvet. Until next time, remember to ask yourself, what if? What if I won the lottery and built a Lucky's drive-in on my front yard? I could have mushroom Swiss burgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yep, that's the dream. And stay speculative, my friends.